Welcome to the show. You're watching Notepad with me, Ibrahim Sani. We're broadcasting from the All Asia Broadcasting Centre in Bukit Jalil here in Kuala Lumpur. We want to explore what to expect coming on the 1st April, the move towards endemicity that Malaysia is taking a step into. We've been talking about this day for a long time now. And of course, a lot of us are already expecting this to happen for a few months already. But as you can see from COVID Now website, the number of positive cases is still at peaking levels, the highest that we've seen so far, but the number of deaths is actually quite low. In fact, one of the lowest rates when it comes to positive cases. And this is due to the large vaccination rates that we've seen. Again, on the same website, COVID Now, you've seen how booster shots for adults is actually above 67% as we speak right now. So 2 in 3 adults have taken their booster shots. If you are an adult and yet to take your booster shot, please do so. It's for your own good and it's for everyone's good as well. And of course, we're talking about peak kids, peak teens. Many of us are actually vaccinating our children as well. Because of this, we can't wait for the country to relax further restrictions. We also can't wait for us to move into traveling. In fact, the term revenge traveling is now back in the story. I myself am actually leaving Malaysia for the first time. I'm leaving Kuala Lumpur for the first time since March 2020 for a short work/holiday in Sabah on the first week of April. That's the clearest indication that I myself am actually quite comfortable traveling, not just for work, but of course for leisure as well. Here to unpack this, basically, and there's a lot more to be told, is Angelica Chan, the country manager for Traveloka Malaysia. Angelica, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Now, like I said just now, there's a lot to be unpacked. But before we jump into that, let's talk a little bit more about Traveloka. How have you guys been so far? I'm not too sure, but I'm pretty certain that the travel industry is going to be reeling from this move. They want to see more activity, more action happening. But as a company itself, Traveloka Malaysia, how have you guys performed over the past few years? And do you anticipate greater growth for this year?
Well, Ibrahim Sani, it's a very good question. So obviously, in the past years, or should I say 2 years, right? It has impacted quite a lot of people, right? Not just industries, but including the rakyat as well, right? So it is definitely difficult for everyone, but I think we have became a little bit more stronger with the pandemic, right? So we have shifted in the past year. We have shifted our strategies into new business verticals, right? So moving more towards the domestic traveling rather than the international or inbound businesses, because basically all of us were really on in the lockdown during the past 2 years. So we Traveloka really in terms of problem solving, the problem solving is actually the Traveloka's DNA, right? So we looked at the our core values, and then we look at what the customers or consumers needed during the pandemic, and also the pain points of the travel industry as well. So really, there was a problem. We look at the problem in both parties, the industry players, and as well as the consumers. And then we resolve the problem or the issue by providing solutions to both parties.
Because
Um,
because of this, we're going to expect a lot more, travel coming in from business as well as leisure. Do you see one sector overtaking the other, or do you see that there's going to be a little bit more business moving forward? How do you anticipate the market returning to traveling?
I think with the current situation, I think the industry players ourselves, right, not just the online business, but the all sectors of the tourism sector would need to actually collaborate and help one another to emerge from this pandemic and grow together, right? So we need to help one another to rely on each other's resources and grow this businesses together.
Okay, let's move on to Traveloka Malaysia right now. Do you anticipate that you need to increase your capacity internally, hiring more people in order to expect more growth? Or do you feel that because it's an online business, you feel that you have the capacity already to, so to speak, because you can scale up? How is it like internally?
Well, internally, I think we are well prepared, right? So during the pandemic itself, as I said, we did a lot of adjustments, right? So people definitely needed to do a little bit extra. But as the business moves, right? So in the past 2 years, we really relied on domestic business only. So our focus was really on domestic business, and we grew from that segment. But now with the inbound business that's opening up slowly one by one, right? Malaysia being the first country to open up to international borders, then we will have the other countries that are also opening up now. We definitely will need more resources as the business grows bigger and expands into other countries. So yeah, definitely we would require additional manpower as the business grows.
Now, Traveloka is entering your 10th year in this industry. There's a lot of competitors out there. In fact, the industry is actually quite rife with competition. Do you see that Traveloka needs to do a little bit different or a little bit better in some areas in order for you to stand out amongst your competitors, considering that travel, both for leisure and business, is going to be a big deal for 2022 onwards?
Um, yeah, so we have been in as you said, we have been in the industry for 10 years already, right? So we started off as really just a flight meta search, right, in 2012, right? And then we grew from there in 2013, then we offered convenience of making flight bookings online, right? And then 2014, we launched the hotel bookings platform. Then in Malaysia itself, we grew and then we expanded to other Southeast Asia countries, namely Thailand, Singapore, Philippines, and Vietnam, right? And today, with all that we have, um, we have now about 40 million monthly active users, right, with Traveloka, and 100 million downloads on our apps, right? In terms of partners, we have really grown over the period of 10 years, and we offer 20 over digital products and services across all our travel local services and financial services. So we have now become a travel super app, right? It's very different from all the other competitors, where consumers now are able to use Traveloka as a one-stop travel app, right? From booking themselves for a COVID-19 test, right up to their flights, stay, and experiences, lifestyle experiences that they could have. So just using one app for all their travel and lifestyle aspirations. So that is one of the biggest differences between ourselves and the other competitors.
Okay, we'll go for one short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more with Traveloka Malaysia. We'll be right back after these messages. Thanks for staying on with us. I have with me on the line Angelica Chan, Country Manager of Traveloka Malaysia. We're going to be talking not just about Traveloka itself, but the industry as well. There's a lot of hesitancy by some travelers, traveling both domestically and internationally. However, many of us are also not to say cavalier about the whole situation, but could travel with SOP. Maybe, Angelica, you can describe to us some of the ideas between the different sets of travelers and what they got to think about moving forward. How do you make sure that the people that travel and don't want to adhere to SOPs, for instance, continue to adhere to SOPs, and those that are very hesitant on traveling because of the concerns of COVID, and not just COVID, I guess, or any other diseases, what would be some of the ideas to entice them to come out and continue to be part of the community, to be part of the economic cycle, and rejoin back life, I suppose, as it were before 2020? What would be some of the messages that you can describe to us for these two groups of people?
I think with the pandemic, definitely there are changes in terms of the consumer travel behavior, right, in the past 2 years itself. So previously, maybe there were quite a bit of single travelers, or couple travelers, but in recent times, so according to the statistics that we have done recently this year, we noticed that a lot of our consumers now prefer to travel with their family members, right? And even extended to like their extended family members. On top of that as well, 50% of the decision making of traveling to a destination is actually made by women, right? And they also like to actually travel by car as opposed to to airlines, right? To airplanes. But moving forward, I think the consumers will start to change and start to accept the pandemic, right? And the SOPs that we have at the same time. So, for instance, we have to take our RTK test 48 hours, and that's probably, and even quarantine, right? That's probably something that it's a deterrent to consumers. But if every country is imposed on that, then it would be part of an acceptance for all the consumers. So it would be an acceptance rather than a deterrent to take a test or to even be on quarantine. Definitely, everyone would have to adhere to the SOPs of all countries, right, for the safety of all the consumers in each of the countries. We all want to be safe. I believe from the pandemic, the 2 years pandemic that we have, a lot of consumers would choose or would like to have a very safe and clean environment, right? More towards sustainability, tourism, and ensuring there's also flexibility. Right? So flexibility also is something that the consumers are really looking at, to ensure that if there are certain pandemic or issues, they are able to actually change their flights or bookings, right? And this can all be done through Traveloka itself. That's the flexibility that we have ensured that our customers is able to have, right?
Yeah, it seems like the three big ideas that we can recap is number one, decision makers are mostly women moving forward, travel with family, and flexibility. I'm sorry, but this three actually hits home quite close to the heart because, like I said in my opening statement before we started the show, or when we started the show, this is my first time leaving Klang Valley since 2020, March 2020. All three were the key factors. My wife made the decision. We're traveling with the family. I'm traveling for work, but the work is just 1 or 2 days. But I'm going there for 3 or 4 days because you just want to get the kids out, and the flexibility has to be there. It's also quite interesting to note that it's very key to understand that this could be transposed to all the other travelers out there, and will this be the way forward, right? Do you think that these kind of trends are here to stay, or do you think that this is just topical for the time being?
It's hard to say. I think it will be it will stay for probably the next say six months, right? As we move away from the pandemic and more travels start to happen, the consumer behavior will continue to change consistently, right? And we will be monitoring those consumer behavior and adjust accordingly, right? And this will happen. So it's something that we do consistently. Being a technology company, we will monitor the consumer behavior and adjust accordingly. And also we will then inform our partners of the decisions of the strategies that we should change and how we can capture the larger business of this based on the consumer behavior.
Okay, we'll go for one short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more with Traveloka Malaysia. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. I have with me on the line Angelica Chan, the country manager of Traveloka Malaysia. Angelica, let's talk a little bit more about the company itself. We know that in the travel industry business took a hard hit during the pandemic. There's a lot that needs to be done in terms of reinvigorating growth. There's also that element of trying to get more foreign tourists in. Maybe you can share with us some of your ideas on trying to improve on foreign incoming travelers for both business and leisure into Malaysia. What will be some of the ideas that you can share with us in trying to improve on that inbound traffic?
I think understanding the consumer behavior is something that it is very important. So we have looked into the consumer behavior in Malaysia itself, right? Now it's time to look at the consumer behavior of the respective countries. As far as we know, since the announcement of the opening of borders, international borders to Malaysia for 1st of April, as soon as the announcement was made, there was actually a traffic increase of traffic demand looking into Malaysia from inbound to Malaysia. So we saw approximately about 25% increase of traffic, right, looking into Malaysia. So it's telling us something, right? That consumers are really looking at going out, right, and traveling. And I think that would continue. We would continue to see that trend moving forward from all countries because people just really want to get out there and explore out there. And not just rely on the domestic travel. But having said that, I think domestic travel will still continue to be a dominant business, right, for all travel sectors. We just need to keep in mind and look at the consumer behaviors internationally. But it is a good sign at this point in time.
Some of the final few questions I want to ask you is on the changes of how people are going to operate moving forward. We're entering the realm of speculation, forecasting, perhaps even just guessing, right? We've seen how you were mentioning some of the data moving forward. You've seen how some of the trends could perhaps stay for the next 6 months. But clearly some of the way we do things have changed, maybe for good. This interview, for instance, is the second interview I'm doing today. The first interview I did today was in person. My guest did come into the studio, drove all the way to Bukit Jalil, and the interview I'm doing with you is online. And I see no difference in terms of the kind of communication that we can bring forward for our audience at home or elsewhere. This is how we work, just like in 3 days a week in the office, 2 days at home, that kind of thing, right? Getting 50% occupancy. We've seen how trends when we work might be the permanent way of doing things. What about travel? Maybe you can share with us some of the ideas that you think is going to shape up. I know it's not, or perhaps it is data supported or not data supported, but clearly things might change for good. What would be some of the ideas that you can share with us in that realm?
Well, it's very interesting because yesterday, while I was reading some articles, and I came across a question from a public about 5 lessons that I have learned from COVID, right? And the 5 was that life is short, right? Jobs are temporary. Your savings can save you. Nature deserves our respects, and the greatest wealth is health, right? So you can see that consumers are really looking into safety and health and security, right, moving forward. So that will continue, as mentioned earlier, right? When we travel, those are the things that we look at first. So safety, health, and security. Um, they will also look into the seamless travel experience, right? So from the airport, hotels, and transportation. So being able to book in a one-stop app, right? So basically being it easy, making it easy for consumers to travel in one platform. Um, and sustainability, right? So people will now continue to travel and spend in tourism sustainability destinations, and flexibility, as I mentioned earlier. It's something that it is also very essential, um, and constraints that travelers feel or think or feel when they want to travel, such as COVID tests that they need to do. It will become a norm, right? It will become a norm, and digitalization, right? Uh, Probably once upon a time there were consumers that make bookings um, offline, but I think with the pandemic, a lot of the consumers have now moved online, right? So relying and accepting digitalization, it's very important. And I can tell you, in Traveloka, we recently, what you call it, we recently launched our gamification, so games, right, through our 10th year anniversary. And the way we do that was that the consumers can actually go into the app, play a cake cutting game, right? And during that gaming process, they are able to get their vouchers, right? So vouchers were distributed through that gamification technology. And within that week, when we launched that product itself, we actually had 15,000 app users playing the game. So you can see that digitalization has evolved during the period.
Okay, and the final question is on coverage and protection, namely insurance. Do you think that travel insurance is going to be a bigger deal moving forward, or do you think that it's going to stay the same?
It will be looking at all the other countries at this point in time. Each time when any consumers travel out or coming in into Malaysia, I think the government has imposed a certain amount of insurance that any individual should have. Um, I don't believe it would be for a long period of time. So depending on how long this pandemic or it should be endemic by now, right, will last for the duration of time. So as we move along, when COVID will probably be like SARS, right? It's totally gone. Then probably those insurance coverage will then be removed from the SOPs of each of the governments or the country's SOPs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Angelica, for sharing some of your ideas. That was Angelica Chan, the country manager for Traveloka Malaysia. If you've missed any part of this show, just head on to astroawani.com, look for Notepad or look for Traveloka. Also, if you plan to travel following the move towards endemicity starting 1st April onwards, do check out consistently and periodically the kind of restrictions that is currently still in imposition by the government. Also, do check out the kind of restrictions that have been lifted. We want you to travel safely, but at the same time having fun as well, either by yourself or with your family members or with your loved ones. The idea here is that we have to return back to normalcy. This is the clearest indicator that we have to return back to normalcy. Traveling has always been a key part of this country. We want to continue to return to that as well. So those are the kind of big ideas that we can share with you for this evening. Until then, thanks very much for watching. Catch you in the next one.